Usually I am a huge fan of minimalism, low buy, underconsumption. Just not buying the thing right away when you think you need it, because mostly you don't. But there are a few things I wish I would have bought sooner, and I want to talk about them in today's video and in general about when does it make sense to buy it, and in most cases it won't. So let's start right into the video. And I do want to say that I had this video idea on vacation, and the reason is that I actually slept well in my tent, in my sleeping bag, on my sleeping pad. And that is because this year I've spent some money to invest in a better sleeping bag that's mainly just warmer, and I also had to buy a new sleeping pad. And with these things, I just had good night's sleep. And yes, not every night, and I think that's normal. But usually when camping during the past 5 years, I was always cold, and I always told myself I have a sleeping bag. I'm not sure if that would solve the problem if I bought a new one. I don't really want to waste the one I have right now, and maybe my feet are just cold no matter what kind of sleeping bag I use. And so I postponed buying something to solve this problem. Long story short, I bought a new sleeping bag, I bought a new sleeping pad, and I'm so glad I did. And I wish I'd done it sooner, because I can now sleep way better on my camping trips, and it's worth all the money I spent. In general, I do think that means when it's about your health, when it's about your sleep, when it's about your mental health and the use of your time, spend the money if you know that it's gonna solve the problem. The next thing I think we should always take with a grain of salt. And it's actually something I have not bought. I'm currently trying to still kind of talk myself into buying. So it's about the clippers I cut my hair with. And I've used these clippers for 10 years to cut my son's hair, to cut my own hair. I've cut baby friend's hair with it as well. And they don't really work. They have the worst battery in the world. And they're just, I don't know. They're a stupid thing, and they cost me so much time. And I'm annoyed every time I try to cut my hair, because I have to plug them in hours early to just get 20 minutes of charge. So what I want to say is that my life would be a lot easier with good clippers. And the broader category I'm talking about here is just things that don't work. And usually actually I like to use things to their ends. Even if something is not really working perfectly anymore. I've had a pair of pants, and one of the pockets didn't really work anymore because part of it was ripped. And so I thought I have one pocket less. I'm still going to use the pair of pants, because other than that, I can still use the other pocket. I can still use the pair of pants. I'm just going to use it until it's destroyed more, so I can actually not use it anymore. And I've had that with kitchen appliances. I have pairs of shoes that are not in great condition anymore, but I just think let's use them as long as I can use them. The thing is, at some point, it's not worth it anymore. That was also the case with my computer when it took 30 minutes to start Photoshop or other programs. And so I think I waited too long there. I'm waiting too long with my clippers. So when something is not working anymore and it takes up so much of your time and so much of your nerves, I think it makes sense to buy something new. But if it's a small inconvenience, or if you can actually still use the thing as it's supposed to be used, but it just doesn't look as great anymore, or some functions are not perfect anymore, but they don't really hinder the way you're using it, then I'm a big fan of keeping it, because otherwise it's waste and no one else is going to use it, and you're the one who could extend the life of that thing. The third thing might be a huge cliche, and again, I think it's more so gray than black and white, because what I'm talking about is experiences. So yes, I do think that I should have spent more money on experiences during the past decade. Part of why I didn't is because I did not have the money, and if you don't have money, then you can't really spend it, and you spend it on your rent before you spend it on experiences. But I do think often it makes more sense to spend money on experiences than on stuff, because stuff is gonna just kind of weigh you down in the long run, while experiences can be good memories. Now, what I want to say is that there's this culture, maybe in my generation, millennials or also Gen Z, maybe Gen Alpha, I'm not sure, that we say like, yeah, spend on experiences instead of stuff. And we just hold that as this one great rule. And we think this is going to make our lives so much better. But chasing experiences and spending mindlessly on experiences might also not make our lives better. Because I think it's also very important to have a good everyday life. And it's also very important to note that not just like spending a lot of money on experiences doesn't necessarily make these experiences great or make them worth all the money. Because what I do think is that a lot of experiences are just as great if they're not that expensive, or there are a lot of experiences that can give you the best memories that don't cost any money. Some of my favorites are going on walks in your neighborhood and discovering new streets, new places, watching the sunrise or a sunset, going on a bike ride, making a campfire, go camping. That does cost some money, but it's a low cost experience. And also when traveling, I think oftentimes it makes sense to go for like a more so makeshift, do it yourself, low cost travel experience, because you're immersed more. You'll learn how to use supermarkets, you'll learn how to use public transport systems, you learn how to solve problems, you get to meet local people more maybe than if you book like an all-inclusive something resort. Now, if that's what you need from your vacation, then I don't know, go for it, and if you have the money to spend. So what I want to say is that yes, it's amazing if you have some money to spend it on experiences, but make sure that it's actually worth it, because some experiences are too expensive and sometimes you get better memories from experiences that are free or don't cost as much. And then there's another thing, and I'm sad that it's true and I hate it, and I think capitalism is to blame, but something I sometimes wish I'd done more or had the chance to do if I had the money is throwing money at problems. Now, especially when traveling, this like shows very apparently and visibly and vividly. And I made a whole episode about like throwing money at problems and how it can help so much to just spend some money over on Patreon. So if you're interested in that, go over there to listen to the podcast episode and become a patron, which would be amazing. But what I want to say, or more so from a bit of a different angle, I think that in today's world, convenience is often very expensive, but also most problems are solvable, is that even a word, with money. And in the past few years, I absolutely never had the money to solve problems with it. Like I had the money to pay rent and groceries, but I did not have the money to spend on ordering delivery to maybe make my life a bit more convenient, because I just really didn't know what to cook. I really didn't have the time to cook. I really didn't have the energy to cook. I did not have the money to, I don't know, pay someone to do something for me that takes me days because I don't have the knowledge and I first have to figure it out. And it would take them just an hour. So I would usually just invest my time, invest stress and attention and mental health into problems that could pretty easily be solved with money. And now, since I started my social work job in like the end of the last year, my financial situation is better and I'm able to throw some money at problems, and it makes my life so much easier. And I still sometimes feel like, why am I spending money on this? This is like not worth money. During our travels, I would spend a ridiculous amount on taxis that like public transport would have been so much less expensive, but was not available in the way we needed it right then and there. And so it's like, I'm not supposed to, I do not want to spend this money to travel this distance, but taxi is going to make my life convenient, and wanting to solve these problems with like walking, public transport, other solution is just not possible and stressing me out like crazy right now. And so like I still think like this is unethically expensive, but this is not available to me right now. And so I spent the money and it made my life so easy, and it was just like, whoop, problem gone. Which is amazing, which is great, which is a lot of times maybe worth it. But I think it can easily lead us into always spending so much money for convenience, and that in itself can make us really unhappy because it kind of leads us into this cushioned life of always just being able to buy ourselves all the conveniences we need, which makes our living costs go up so fast. Like this is kind of the, how's it called? Lifestyle inflation. And I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think this will make you happy. And on the other hand, we can kind of lose touch with reality. And I also think we can kind of get trapped in a cycle, and it's very hard to later on lower our cost of living again. And I also think that it's worth spending some energy and time and effort on the easy tasks of our life that we can buy the solutions to. So what I want to say with this whole video is that in a lot of cases, it absolutely makes sense to be a minimalist, to be under consumption person, to do low buys, to really think about buying something. I've actually made a whole video about thinking about buying this camera that I really want but don't really need, and reflecting on it, because some people said I've thought way too much about it, but I don't think that's the case. I'm very glad that I thought so much about it, and I documented this whole thinking process in this video, because thinking less about it wouldn't have made for a good decision. I think when we want to spend a large sum of money just because we want to, just because we want something just for convenience, it really makes sense to think a lot about it and to make sure that this money is worth it, because money is our time that we worked to get it. And sometimes it's also okay to just use our time to do everyday tasks, to do annoying tasks, because living in the end is just an experience and not all of it is fun. And the process of struggling and doing and experiencing things is what life is made of. So I think, that's fine. While that, of course, does not mean that I think the struggles you're going through because you're discriminated against for any reason are just your life and your struggles you go through. No, these are things we should end and make sure people do not need to experience. Now, I would be really interested in knowing some things that you wish you had bought sooner, spent some money on, that would have made your life better. But also let me know how you ensure that you don't end up just spending a lot of money on conveniences, on things you think you need that later on you realize were not worth your money. Thank you so much for watching, and I do want to link your video here, and I do also want to say that you should go check out Patreon and the podcast that's available every single week there. And I do hope to see you on Patreon, or in this video, or in the next one. Goodbye.